Okay, so we are live, and I am very happy to have as a guest today Michelle Fridman, who is the Secretary of Tourism in the state of Yucatan. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Steph. I'm thrilled to be here with you and all of your audience. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes, thank you. You know, it's kind of rare for us to be able to interview in English a government official, and I know it's really valuable for us to hear, directly from you, who you have a lot of information about what's happening, and maybe some inside look into what's really going on. And of course, we're at the One Human Race Solidarity Fest, the Facebook Fest. I'm hoping maybe next year and the years after it could be out in public and real people,
Yes.
right? We can actually like touch or hug.
Let's do that.
Yes, let's do it. But yeah, so there's so many topics really to kind of touch on with you here. I mean, like I have said before, and I said in an interview before you and in my introduction, really this festival is about solidarity with everybody that has been, with pretty much everybody, because we've all been suffering from COVID-19,
Yes.
both health-wise, economically, emotionally, because people are feeling fear and anxiety and uncertainty for the future. And then, so we have that we're all dealing with, which is pretty dire. And then, I'm from the US, and what happened in the US and what is happening now has really affected me. And I'm sure it's affected everybody in the world, where George Floyd was murdered in front of basically our eyes. And I know everybody was affected by that. So there's kind of this storm of protests and the storm of activism and outrage in the US. And at the same time, that social storm is happening in the US, a real tropical storm is coming over, this part of Mexico and hit Yucatan really bad. And, I was just saying that I'm trying to translate the information from the government as much as possible so that people get the real source of information. And Governor Mauricio Vila's address to the state was just shocking on how much destruction Yucatan has really suffered. And I know how much the government is really being tested right now. So can you tell us a little bit about what is the climate after Tropical Storm Cristobal, and what are the immediate challenges that we are being faced with?
Well, you're right, Steph. We keep asking ourselves as humanity, not only as government, but as humanity, what's going on with the world, and what does the world is trying to say. When we thought we were dealing with the COVID-19, which is already the biggest crisis, probably the biggest we will ever experience, then the storm arrives and shows us how fragile are we as human beings, as government. I mean, we just cannot do the things the way we used to do everything. I mean, in terms of tourism, which is the industry that I represent, we cannot continue doing the same things, the same kind of tourism, the destructive one, the massive tourism. We need to change the way we are used to do things.
Absolutely. Right. And as the Secretary of Tourism, I know that you've had so many projects in the works, or you did kind of pre-COVID. And I hats off, because I always follow what you're doing in tourism. And I know a lot of the people that follow us do too, because they're interested in coming here and learning about Yucatan. And now that direction has completely changed. So what are you doing as in the tourism, in the Ministry of Tourism? What is your focus right now?
Okay, well, let me give you some perspective. As you probably know, we had a 2019, which was a very successful year in terms of tourism growth in Yucatan. We had record numbers. We brought a lot of new investment and connectivity, huge events. such as the World Peace Nobel Summit. We won the opportunity to host the Tianguis Turístico, which is the biggest event in terms of tourism in Mexico. It's the biggest trade show for tourism. And right when we were about to hold the Tianguis Turístico, I mean, days before, President Trump announced the lockdown for America and the shutdown of most of the international connectivity. So we decided that we had to postpone the Tianguis Turístico. First to September, and then we decided to do it until next year, until March 21. Right. So that's just one example of how dramatically our plans changed. Of course, now we need to be resilient, and we need to rebuild the tourism in a better way and go back to the path where we were before the coronavirus crisis, because we were building a sustainable strategy for tourism. And I think that's the right way. I mean, coronavirus crisis only accelerate the process of doing a better tourism. Yucatan was already in the process of building that strategy. So we want to go back there to the right way of doing tourism, an inclusive one, a better one, a more responsible tourism for Yucatan and for Mexico and for the planet as well.
Right. And and when you're talking about the Tianguis, because it was basically canceled like a week before. Yes. So days. It wasn't that, or days, yeah, right? So it wasn't that you were in the planning mode. It was that you had, the government had already spent probably, I don't know the number, but probably millions and millions of pesos, and the hotels. I mean, there was a lot of money, I would assume, lost when that got changed. Boom, because that was, a lot of reservations were lost at hotels, et cetera, et cetera. Yes. And so that's something that I'm sure that you're having to deal with now, the repercussions of that.
That was shocking, to be honest. The Tianguis Turístico was sort of our highest point in the administration, at least in terms of tourism. It's like having the big event of your industry right here with us at home. And then when we decided to postpone, we didn't even have enough time to deal with it or to get depressed about it. Right. We just took care in the first place of the health of the people. We by following the orders of the governor, we shut down most of the hotels and restaurants and products in the state in order to take care of the health of the people. Second, we decided to move towards the preservation of the touristic offer by helping in different ways our industry, with credits, with money, with the taxes. Right. Then we start to build a new kind of destination with new certification process, which is a very important thing to let people know. Renewing our destination with new products according to the new needs of the travelers post-COVID. And we've been preparing ourselves for the reopening. We've been for 1 week dealing with wave number 1, in which we're operating some of the hotels and restaurants and the products of the state.
Right. And how is it? Because you mentioned that you're moving towards a new way, kind of a new innovative way towards tourism. And so what can you give us some examples of what that looks like, and how you say even more now after COVID? So what does that look like? Maybe some examples of what that means.
Well, there are many things we don't know about this crisis, and actually there is a quote from the World Tourism Organization that I really like, and it says, "We don't know when will we see the end of the crisis," and that's so true. I mean, the crisis hasn't finished yet, but there are some things that we do know. And we know we need to be resilient. We know we need to support the industry as a government. We need to support jobs. And that's what the state of Yucatan did with the tourism industry. And most important, we need to reinvent the old models of making tourism. We
Right.
need to build a more sustainable and inclusive strategy for tourism. We need to provide safety nets to our visitors. That's number one priority now. We need to rethink our products. We've been working on all of those things because I strongly believe with every crisis there is an opportunity dose that comes with the crisis. The most important thing is to leave behind the destructive nature of the massive, all-inclusive, which I'll rather call the non-inclusive tourism, the unsustainable tourism that has been destroying some other destination. I'm not speaking about Yucatan, but that has shown us how the tourism can destroy instead of build. We want to make a good tourism, and we've been working on that since we arrived. It's not a new thing for us. I cannot imagine a different way of doing tourism if it's not a responsible and inclusive, an authentic way of doing tourism in a destination.
Right. And when you say responsible, are you talking like environmentally responsible?
Not only, I mean, of course, environment is a priority on sustainability, but it's not the only one. I'm also talking about heritage. I'm also talking about the social importance. I'm talking about being responsible with all the wealth from the state, from the destination.
Right. So responsible with the specific populations here in Yucatan. Yeah, that's what you mean?
Let me give you one example. And again, I'm going to talk about the all-inclusive hotels, which again, I call them the non-inclusive because you can see right next in Quintana Roo a few huge hotels with maybe 1,000 rooms. The hotel is probably not even a Mexican chain.
Right.
And some of the workers, if not most of them, they're not even Mexican, and they're importing maybe 60-70% of the food that people is eating, so nobody's winning there. No, it is not an inclusive tourism. While we're trying to have a tourism that takes care of the environment here, that gives jobs to the Yucatecan people, that consumes local products, and that takes care of the nature and the heritage and the culture by creating authentic and unique experiences according to the place where the tourism is developing.
Right. 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 Okay. Yeah. And in that way, also the abundance or the profit off of that trickles down to a lot more people that are integral in the future.
Surely. There's another fact that is really important from the sustainable tourism, and it's the fact that we want to decentralize the tourism. We don't only have Merida, which is beautiful. It's the best city in the world according to Condé Nast. Just mentioning one of many awards that we've been receiving. There's not only Chichen Itza. We have plenty of places. We want to take the tourism benefits everywhere. I mean, there are so many places, Izamal in Valladolid, and we have Uxmal, Ekbalam, the beaches, the cenotes, the haciendas. There are Yucatecan experiences all over the state, and
Right.
they're
It's very unique.
all around the state.
Right. 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 So I mean, as far as when do you really expect tourists to start coming back? I know it's kind of early. We're only in wave one, and who knows what's going to happen with the virus. And we'll touch on this topic in a second about the storm that came through. So we're facing a lot of challenges. But when do you project we might be getting maybe more? I think probably first wave would be national tourism, and then
Yeah,
international.
definitely. Well, it's a hard question because one of the hardest things about this crisis is that we don't have any dates. We
Yeah.
cannot ever say on this date this is gonna happen, or
Right.
in this specific date we will change the color of the crisis. You know,
Right.
the crisis is measured by red or orange or
Yeah.
green color. I mean, now we're on the orange color, but we don't know what's going next.
Right.
Um, and of course, we're starting with the domestic and the regional tourism. Actually, our current campaign is stay at home, but meaning that Yucatan is our home. Like stay
Right.
in Yucatan, because
Right.
there are so many experiences to live in Yucatan that we don't want Yucatecans to go any other place if they can stay here
Right.
doing tourism, like the staycation. Um, of course, we do have Quintana Roo right next to us, and Quintana Roo has a strong interest in the international tourism. So we want to bet to both markets, the national and the international.
Right.
We would rather start with the domestic uh, tourism. It's our biggest tourism, and I don't know when will we be seeing the international. But I mean, if everything goes right, I think the governor has been doing a great job in terms of containing the health crisis. If everything keeps going the good way, and that's something we're all part of. I mean, if we
Right.
do it right, all of us, not only the government, but each one of us, if we do it properly,
Right.
I think we will be seeing international tourism in probably 2 or 3 months.
Really? Well, that would
Probably,
be,
I hope so.
well, cross our fingers. Yeah. Um, so another thing that I did also want to touch on is the crisis that we are facing with the floods. And I know that in the government, I mean, in my opinion, you've done a really great job being faced with these absolute overwhelming challenges. So what is happening with the effects of the storm? I mean, I know right now we're kind of struggling to get people dry clothes and food, and they're just starting to be able to drive out to villages that were isolated because of the waters. What is going on there, and how is that affecting?
Well, of course, the main priority for the government is to help those people, to bring them what they need in terms of clothes and food, and I mean, to give them quality of life. That's the urgency.
Right.
And there are some um, ministries that take care of that. We from tourism, we've been inviting people to send help to the people that need some support in Yucatan. But that's when I suggest to go for the biggest picture. It's not just the current crisis. It's not just the COVID crisis or the storm crisis. It's
Mhm.
a huge crisis in which the world is screaming and asking us to do it in a different way. And
Right.
that's where we can support somehow by doing a different tourism, a sustainable tourism, a tourism in which we can bring help and development to those communities so that they're not always that vulnerable. I'm thinking more in a long term because the government is taking care of the short term.
Right. Right, but in the long term, the sustainable tourism
Yes.
will trickle down to all of those people that have been affected. Because a lot of them are in the villages, and it's cultural heritage. It's such a brilliant experience. I was talking about this when in one of my classes yesterday, asking if they've ever gone to a village and had an experience with the people in the village, because it's its own attraction to learn how people live in its very traditional way. It's a really special
Actually,
experience.
we for the Tenis Turístico, we were about to launch a lot of new products, a lot of new touristic products that we've been working on, and many of those products are in the communities. you know, the bee tours, or you can taste the honey and the Mayan
Right.
villages. The Mayan villages is an amazing program that we were about to launch, and hopefully with the time it will get stronger. But it's about first giving new experiences to the tourists, authentic experiences.
Absolutely.
Second, to bring the benefits of tourism straight to the communities. And third, by making the Mayan culture and the Mayan heritage a way of living through tourism, we're endorsing the Mayans to keep their traditions, their way of cooking, their traditional houses. And so it is an example of a sustainable way of doing tourism.
Sure. Right. Right. Well, yeah. Hopefully we will see tourists come back and the local tourists. That's one thing I would like to do is to start to get out into places. There's lots of places in Yucatan that I have not been that I want to go. So I'm hoping in the next, as things open up a little bit more in wave 2 and wave, because it's really in wave 3 that we're kind of allowed to go out and stay as a tourist at a hotel and things like that.
Especially wave 3.
Wave
Right now we're in wave number 1, and I'm pretty confident we'll do a good job together. Society, the hotels, the restaurants, and the government. We need to do it properly so we can go to the second wave or the third wave.
Right, exactly. Yes, well, we'll continue to try to do our part there. You know, one last topic I just did want to touch on. You know, you did a really great job, and the government did a really great job with the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates when they came here, and I know it was really inspiring for me, and I know a lot of people, and and there was a big group of young people that came, and we saw peace activists from all over the world, and really talking about a lot of topics that are real hot topics right now on a global stage. And so I just wanted to ask you a little bit about how those messages of equal rights and women's rights and really fighting against racism, which is something that has come up and has affected us worldwide now. It's started in the US. I mean, as far as last week with the events, and now it happens everywhere. So I know it's a kind of a different direction as far as a question, but how can we as a people in Yucatan kind of contribute to those topics that were brought here and that were celebrated here as something that needs to be integral in the society?
Well, definitely, I believe the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates was a tremendous gift for Yucatan and also for Mexico. I mean, for the last years, Mexico has been in negative news in terms of violence and corruption in the worldwide media. During many years, this is what the world has been listening about Mexico. And for some weeks or even months, we or the summit allowed us as Yucatan or as Mexico to tell a different story about who are we.
Right.
Who we are. I'm sorry, I'm still practicing my English. I
You're
will
doing
tell
great.
you, this is my first English talk since COVID-19.
Right. You're doing great.
But the summit was the opportunity to show us not only as a top destination with huge worldwide events, but also as a reference of peace and humanity. But not everything is so beautiful. It also gave us the opportunity to learn how to be a better society. And we need to learn so much more about it, not only in Yucatan, in the world. I mean, it's frustrating for me to see the news and see that much violence and racism and discrimination, even though there are so many places where the people is talking and screaming for peace. The summit was one of them, but there are constantly in every place in the world there are places, or there's people or leaders talking about how important it is to build a better society, a diverse society.
Right.
And I don't know if we haven't learned that as humanity, but I mean, the world is trying to teach us something, and we should take the opportunity of learning the message right now. If we don't, I don't understand what else do we need to experience.
Right, right. To really listen to what's happening and see it, I think is one of the first steps. Just listen and see it and accept what's happening, and then try to work for a better now and a better future.
It's been a rough time for the last months. I mean, I'm pretty sure no one has had a happy moment in the last in the last months. But we do have the unique opportunity of learning about it.
Absolutely.
I really hope we can manage to build something out of this.
Right, right. Well, all right. We'll go ahead and finish up on that note. Thank you so much for coming. And I will look forward to reporting about and talking about all the plans that you guys have for Yucatan tourism. I'm excited to see that.
And I just want to add, first, stay safe. And second, stay in Yucatan.
Yes.
Travel around Yucatan.
Absolutely. All right. Great. Thanks so much, Michelle.
Bye.
Bye.